Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's program. We have a really great program, but first, let us call on Valerie, who will lead us in the pledge and the four-way salute. All right.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And of the things you think, say, or do, number one, is it the truth? Two, is it fair to all concerned? Three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And four, will it be beneficial for all those concerned?
How about, let's see, Dawn, the thought for the day from a very thoughtful person.
I am thoughtful, and so are the rest of us. I may have done this one before, but I think it's very pertinent these days. By night, may the rain wash away your worries. May the breeze blow new strength into your being. May you walk gently through the world and know its beauty all the days of your life. So no more fires.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to introduce, I think we only have one visiting Rotarian, Jennifer Flippy from Illinois Valley. Oh, you introduced. Welcome, Jennifer.
I just want to introduce Jennifer Philippi, Jennifer Krause Philippi over here, and she's a member of the Cape Junction Club and a visitor today, good friends with Bruce, our speaker, and I have known her since I was 7 and she was 3. And so I just thought that was noteworthy.
Like we both needed a babysitter at those ages. So let's see, how about visiting guests?
I have Lindsay Thornton here with me today. She is a volunteer at the farm. We're having a great time together out there planting vegetables, and we're having a great harvest this year. So thanks for coming, Lindsay.
Debbie.
Kelly Witters is the manager of the financial assessment advisor at Edward Jones at around 7th and A Street. And she is, I think, going to sign on the dotted line.
And then Debbie, are you going to introduce? Well, we have, why don't you come up, and Judy, the artist for the mural, is going to make an announcement. So maybe you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Judy. I have a membership application. I just haven't filled it out yet. I'm filling in for Doug because he's in Ireland drinking Guinness, I'm sure. And a little update on the mural. We've gotten started on some of the prep work on the wall, and we're trying to get all organized so that we can go full swing as soon as Doug gets back from vacation. Part of that process, we started with a very small committee. I think there were just 4 of us, and several people have been jumping in and helping. If you would like to be on the email list for the daily workings of the mural, there's one of these sheets at the back table. There's the mural drawing and some of my cards. Oh, there's Deb. And there's some of my cards if you need my email address or phone number. And we're gonna be doing reports to the whole club occasionally. But if you want to be more involved with the mural committee, please sign up. Thank you.
And before Judy leaves the stage, I was talking with her before and saying, oh, so are you going to become a member of this Rotary? And she said,
Yes.
Okay, any other announcements? Darlene?
Okay, we just got back from Cozumel. We've talked with the Rotary Club down there. They're on track for their part of the international grant. They are working with the teachers in the 2 schools, and those teachers are working on the curriculum for hand washing, sanitation, everything that they're going to be teaching the students. Once we get that curriculum, once Jim gets that and he goes over it, because they're translating it into English because they want it in English, not Spanish, then Jim is going to get it and take it and correct all the English and then send it on. But one of the issues that we had, we met with Emicio, who is heading up their side of the international grant. We saw him on the 27th. We had great time, lovely dinner, and kind of sort of wrapped all of that stuff up. And that was on a Sunday night. Jim and I left on Tuesday to come back home, and Tuesday afternoon, Emicio's 14-year-old son died. So Emicio is kind of grieving. He's not in this process very well. And they were there. They start school about a week earlier than we do here. He was at soccer practice. They hadn't even started the practice yet. He just collapsed. And they called 911. They called the family. Emicio and his wife came before the ambulance got there, and they just said that he fainted and he had a massive coronary event. And that's pretty much all we know. It's not like here, they don't do autopsies. So they're in the state of grief right now. And if you know Cozumel and that, pretty much everybody knows everybody. And so everybody on that island is kind of in shock and grief, because why should a 14-year-old boy die? So hopefully Emicio will get that information to us by the end of this month, so we can have it ready, prepared, all figured out, so we can push the button to send it to international. And we're hoping to get that done before the global meeting in Medford in October.
I believe we've got one on from Zoom, don't we?
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
I can hear you, but I'm in Zoom world too.
Aha.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wanted to remind everybody, it's back to school time and back to our Student Service Above Self Award program. The first one will be October the 19th. And if you have committed funds or gift cards or promotional items, whatever it is, I need you to make sure and get them to either me or the funds to the club as soon as we could get that done, because I'd like to have everything completed by the end of September, so I know what I have to work with. just a reminder. Thank you to everybody who has said yes.
Thank you. And if you're going to make a cash donation through the foundation, correct? Yes.
You can through our foundation or to the club.
John. She's not here. Before I give to Jan. Okay, are there any other announcements? I've got just a few. I really want to give Dr. Murray plenty of time. First of all, don't forget we've got the 50-50 raffle going on. Oh, why don't you walk around and sell them? Okay, so we got a few left. Number one. Number two, I want just remind everyone, the Rotary month, this month is basic education and literacy. We will have a program on that next week. Next one, I'm going to go out to a property next Wednesday. There's a note about it in the Navigator. It's at the Rogue River Preserve. Come and talk to me or contact me if you'd like to go. We could carpool very easily. It's about a 45-minute drive. You work about 3 hours at your own pace. Beautiful property, and then you head back. If you are interested, we can talk about it later or email me or call me. And then the third thing or the fourth thing is what we do, it varies. What's in the Navigator, there's a description of it in the Navigator. Often we pull invasive species. Sometimes the hardest work is trail building, but I don't think we'll be doing that. Pretty much pull invasive species. Sometimes we harvest seeds from native grasses that are replanted later. We actually talk a lot, visit and hike a bit. So it's a beautiful property. Anyway, we're talking about getting our club involved in the foreign exchange program, which if we're going to, we need to get on it now. So if anyone is interested, we need some committee members who would be on the foreign exchange program. Probably, well, yes, this month we'll start going out to high schools and talking to our students about their going overseas. I think the inbounds arrive maybe August or so, something like that. So it'd be next year. If you're interested in serving on a committee and being on a committee, the committee does not mean you have to host a student from overseas. In fact, we learned that we can sponsor an overseas student, and a family that's not a Rotarian in our club can actually host. So it adds a little flexibility to it all. Anyway, you can talk to Don about it or Tommy or me. But if we want to do this, we need to get on it now, and we need some people. Okay, with that, Steve, I think you're going to be the introduce Dr. Murray.
So a couple of clarifications. I guess the Navigator, some of you have not received it yet. And mine got it about 8 o'clock this morning when Constant Contact sent it out. So hopefully it'll get out. If you didn't get a copy, let me know and I'll just forward you my copy. Don't know what happened there, but that's the first time they've let me down. So when it comes to introductions, I got to tell you a quick story why I'm probably not the best person to do introductions. You know, I write the back page of the sneak preview each month. And a few months ago, I was writing one on pickleball and about Jack Davis. And so, you know, you can believe everything you read on the internet. And so I went to the internet, and on the Grants Pass pickleball page, they talked about Jack Davis being the class valedictorian, as well as being a starter for the Grants Pass high school football team, and a few other facts. And I listed that in the article. Thankfully, I sent it to Jack before approval, and he says, well, these things weren't true. It's one of those things. And so I said, well, on the pickleball page, you've got a person out there that just maybe is exaggerating your beliefs just a little bit about the facts about life. But today's introduction, I do know, and it's Dr. Bruce Murray. And I've known him, I call him, I always feel uncomfortable calling a doctor, but Dr. Murray or Bruce, I think if he prefers to be called, especially in Rotary, but he's done so much for other people. And not just in four continents, through his work, and he's truly a person, I think, that's service above self. And today I know we're all going to learn more about Dr. Murray and also his current projects about helping the homeless in our community. So with no further ado, Dr. Bruce Murray. Okay. I've been known to use verbal. Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. Is this working okay in the back? Closer to my mouth. Like a rock star, right? You put it in your mouth. Yeah. Anyway, this is really a pleasure for me. I have to admit a little bit of nerves because I'm not used to standing up here and talking about my life. I don't think I've ever done this before. My wife looked it over and she kind of approved. Said, you left out the dog. And I said, no, it's right there. So I think I got the key bases. But I want to thank you. I've been in the club for 18 months or so. Steve is my sponsor, and I've gotten to meet many of you. Some of you I knew from the past. Obviously, Boots I've known for 25 years. Steve, of course, Dawn, Welch, Valerie, Judy, and we have a visitor from another Rotary Club today, and that's Jennifer Philippi. So, and then I've met wonderful people. Deborah gave me a preview of what I should be doing, which I'm not doing. She had me watch Gina Marie's vocation talk from July of 2022. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. There were overlapping pictures. They're all just have me. I'm sorry. I do a lot of PowerPoints, but you know, they're to get across a specific thing about a specific goal. So I have PowerPoints on virtually everything that we're going to talk about, but I just wanted to talk and read the audience and have you ask me questions. So what I learned, you know, Grants Pass is a small town, and I think we are separated by no more than 2 degrees, but sometimes it takes something like looking at Gina Marie's vocational talk from over a year ago to realize what a connection we have, right? Yeah. What is our connection? Your mother. Kathy was just one of the best nurses I ever worked with at Southern Oregon Medical Center 25, 30 years ago. And she moved to Josephine later, or moved to the Three Rivers. Yeah. So I've known her, and her best friend is Kitty Watt, who was my nurse for many years. So blah, 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 blah. You have a wonderful mother, and please give her my love. Really spectacular. But I didn't know that until yesterday. Never put Acosta and Acosta together for some reason. Anyway, I am easily the most fortunate, many people would say privileged person to talk to you, because I've had an incredible life. And yes, I have sought out some things, but then things started rolling, things started developing, and opportunities became apparent. So I don't claim all the credit. Somebody, and I'm not religious, but somebody is helping me along the way. I just can't put a name on who that person or image is. I grew up largely in Miami, Florida. I say largely because I was a Navy brat. My father was in the Navy and the son of a sailor. And I'm the son of a sailor. He was a sailor. He was in the Navy. He was at Pearl Harbor. He had a difficult life. He ended up being a junior high teacher later on and had a very difficult life too. Anyway, I credit him with a lot of good things that he taught me. My mother was also salt of the earth. She was the first one to even set foot in a college and finished 2 years of a women's junior college in South Georgia. No one else in her family had ever gone to college. So I did not come of my education without her drive for me. And now that drive is helping me help people other places achieve their educational goals as well. But I give all the credit to my mother. I grew up in Miami from age 10. That's where we settled after we had moved 7 times in 10 years. I went to 9 schools before I graduated high school. I love Miami. It was great back in the 60s. I went from there to Dartmouth College, where I was undergraduate, and there's no such thing as a pre-med major. I had to pick a major, and I picked Russian literature. And that, again, one of those doors opened. I met this great charismatic professor, and he said, you want to go to Russia with me in 3 years? Soviet Union, this is 1969. You want to go to the Soviet Union with me in a couple of years? I said, yeah, you have to learn Russian. So I took Russian language while I was taking pre-med, while I was reading Dostoevsky in Russian, Crime and Punishment, my favorite book of all time.
And so I got to go there. And so I'd already had an experience of living overseas. My father was in the Navy. And for age 7 through 9, we were stationed in Yokosuka, Japan. My first experience, I was young, but it was a landmark experience for showing me another life, another culture, another way of doing things. How you behave when you're the minority, which that came into handy lots of times in my future. From there, I went to, came back home, University of Miami Medical School. From there, I went to UCSF for 3 glorious years where I actually learned the practice of medicine under the best teachers in the world. And when I finished that, I then had 2 years of payback for my medical education through the public health service, which used to have a wonderful year for year, we'll pay your fees in medical school, and I mean all fees, and you owe us a year in an underserved area. So again, I'm moving in that direction, right? So where do they send me? To the one of only 2 Native American reservation indigenous people groups that had never signed a peace treaty with the United States. The Jicarilla Apaches in northern New Mexico. Great place, but they're still wild and they still don't like us. But they're doing fine. The other group is the Miccosukes, by the way. Somebody said, well, who's number 1? Miccosukes, which are like the Seminoles in the swamps of South Florida, which I also know because that's where I live. So anyway, my life has been characterized by a series of things that were driven by a love of travel, a love of culture, love of other people. And the fact that I got into medicine, I could have done those through a lot of other things. It was age 12. I was given a book or picked up a book called Deliver Us from Evil by Dr. Thomas Dooley. Anybody here ever hear of Thomas Dooley? You have? All right. He was actually on What's My Line back in 1958 or so. I read later. Anyway, he was an American doctor, a naval surgeon in Southeast Asia in the 1950s. So after the French Indochina War was over, and as things were getting hot for America, which would lead to our involvement in Vietnam, they had just made the DMZ line, cut Vietnam in half, communist north, supposedly free south, won't go there. But basically, there were hundreds of thousands of refugees flowing over the border into Southeast Asia, both Cambodia and Vietnam, some into Laos as well. And this guy was credited with starting the medical care for refugees in South Vietnam. It was amazing. And he wrote 3 books, and it just grabbed me. Here's a guy that's got it all. He's smart. He's got a profession he can take anywhere. It's just movable, and he's helping people in exotic locations and eating incredible food. So sign me up. That was age 12. And that really did make the decision for me to do what I'm still doing. Anyway, when people go, how did you ever get into this? I credit Dr. Tom Dooley. Anyway, it also, the reservation was very interesting. I think everyone should live as an extreme minority in a population sometime in your life. I was one of the very few white people on the reservation. We were 80 miles north of Santa Fe, 90 miles east of Farmington. Durango is another 90 minutes to the northwest. And I was the only doctor for at least a 50-mile radius. At 7,000 feet in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains on the Colorado border. We couldn't get out a lot in the wintertime. And we had a first aid station ER. And it was an amazing experience. And the other theme of my life is I seem to end up working with good people who do great things. And I had a nurse practitioner, midwife, because I was on a reservation where there were lots of pregnancies, and that is not my strength. I'm an internist. And so having her there with me all the time, there were 3 PAs, each of a different tribe, and a pharmacist practitioner, and we ran a very busy emergency room 24/7. That was another great experience. And later on, I realized how making art, there's a circle appearing. The other thing I learned after I finished the reservation, I was invited back to teach because I was one of the few faculty at UCSF that had actually worked in the real world, and I had definitely worked in the real world. So they invited me back to teach interns and medical students internal medicine in the Fresno campus, which I did for 6 years. So I was an assistant professor of medicine. I practiced some medicine, but mainly by teaching in outpatient clinics, and I was a ward attending. I was chief of medicine at the VA hospital there for 2 years as well. Teaching is the third or fourth theme. Lots of themes in my life, but they all kind of come together. But teaching has always been important to me. I love talking to board groups when I'm passionate about something. Unfortunately, today is not one of those days, obviously. I'm still on a high. I just got out of the park just an hour ago. Where am I doing? Oh, okay. Hey, we're getting there. So anyway, my overseas work as a doctor began. I'd worked for the Grants Pass Clinic for many years. I started there January 1st, 1990. I retired 27 years later, beginning of 2017. But about 2006, I was starting to get the itch to work overseas. I had read about it. I had worked on the reservation when I was in medical school. I did electives in Venezuela, Honduras, Trinidad, and Bahamas. And so, 15, 16 years of private practice in Grants Pass, I just needed to do more. So I got talked into going to the largest hospital in all of East Africa. It's Malago Hospital in Kampala, Uganda. You've been there? Wonderful. It's a 1,200 bed hospital, largest hospital in East Africa. There were 1,500 patients when I arrived. They were doubled up. Kids were 2 to 3 to a bed. Old people who were small were 2 to a bed. Some were in room closets. The emergency room was overflowing out into the street. And it was the height of the AIDS epidemic. 2006? No, they had medicines for it then. Why 2006? No, this was the peak because their funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for malaria, TB, and HIV had been stolen. $51 million disappeared in the back pocket of a Geneva bank as the Ministry of Health man left the country and has never been seen before again. So I arrived, I've got 2 interns a resident and 50 admissions a day, and 30 will be dead by tomorrow. They had CD4 counts of less than 10, almost always, which meant they showed up with their opportunistic infections the night before they died, because the only reason you would ever go to a hospital is to die. So it became this self-fulfilling prophecy. We didn't see people till they were untreatable. If we wanted to treat them, we couldn't treat them. It was a heartbreaking event. Imagine that's your medical training. And so that marked me somehow, some way. It made me want to go back. Because clearly I could offer something. Hospice care was my specialty at that point, palliative care. I could talk about that hospital experience for an hour. I won't do it, but it was searing. But it made me want to go back. I ended up working that was Health Volunteers Overseas. I ended up working for Medical Teams International, which was the was from Northwest Medical Teams 30 years ago. They're up in Portland. They're a wonderful group. And they sent me on 10 different trips to 3 different continents over the next 15 years. And I owe them so much, but I got to work in refugee camps throughout Uganda. On the north, you've got Sudan, and then later South Sudan. On the west, you've got the horrible Democratic Republic of Congo. And below that, you've got Rwanda. Kenya is not too far away. They all have their problems. They all dump their refugees in Uganda, which, despite my many criticisms of Uganda on many levels, they do an incredible job, the best job of any single country in the world to take care of refugees from other places. I got to work in all of their major camps over a several-year period. So I was finally beginning to integrate medical practice with travel, with cultures, and became familiar with what it's like to work in underserved areas. And so it clicked all the boxes for me. So when I retired in 2017, that's what I wanted to do. And so I threw my hat in the ring in 4 different NGOs, and they liked me, and they sent me back to Uganda for a while. I taught in a nursing school in the Congo jungle to nursing students, the only nursing school for a 100-mile radius, and they trained 100 nurses a year. That was a great experience. The rest of it was with refugees. I did 2 trips to Greece for the refugees coming from North Africa and through the Turkish pipeline up there. One was wonderful, northern Greece on the Macedonia border, where things were organized and that worked well. Then 2 years later, Lesbos Island, just off the coast of Turkey, where they're pouring in. Lesbos had lost their patients. 2015, they were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The city Mytilene in Lesbos. 2 years later, they were not feeding them, not taking care of them, would not allow them to be seen by Greek doctors, would not let them transfer off the island. It was the most traumatic experience. I went there because the BBC put out a thing going, the worst refugee camp in the world. And I said, sign me up. I can do this. Seriously. And I was wrong. I was wrong. It beat me down. But I learned a lot from it. And I ended up writing papers on vicarious trauma and PTSD, not only for people living what they were living through, but for the staff I was working with as well. So moved, fast forward to 2020, somewhere in there. Okay, 2020, I made my last trip to Uganda. Fortunately, it was with my son, Ben, who is just amazing. I have the wonderful Dr. Brown is my wife. Any of you that have dealt with the Grants Pass Clinic, that's how they will. No, Dr. Murray can't see you today, but you can see the wonderful Dr. Brown in urgent care in an hour. So you know who was the more popular one. She's wonderful. We were lucky to have one son because it was a difficult pregnancy, but boy, did we hit it rich. We have a great son who's 36. He moved here when he was a year, spent 35 years here, went to Grants Pass High, went to South Middle School, went to Redwood Elementary, and all his best experiences were experienced here. He pitched for Grants Pass High School for 3 years, which led him to pitching for 4 years at Dartmouth. And he graduated academic all Ivy baseball. But his wife gave him his intelligence, his good look, but I taught him how to throw a curveball, and that got him into college. Okay, so I come back from Uganda with my son. We worked up north in the Sudanese camp area. He treated malaria. He ran an inpatient hospital for those critically ill with malaria for a month. 25 patients, and it was continual turnover. He had 1 death in 1 month. He was amazing, but I knew he was amazing. That was pretty. So the last 3 years, when I came back, May 20th, 2020, COVID hit, landed in Seattle Airport. It was empty. We were one of the last flights, and I was the last doctor. But Ben and I were the last doctors out of Uganda, and they have not replaced any doctors in Uganda since that time through Medical Teams International because of a variety of political issues. So I walked over to public health. I know David Candelaria for years. He said he could use a medical advisor in the community. So I did that, started the contact tracing program, did that, and finished that in late 2021. I then saw, driving around, that we had people experiencing homelessness. Who knew? Because I didn't. On the pretty 3rd floor building floor of the Grants Pass Clinic, overlooking a different area. And I know they've become more obvious, but they were there. It was kind of an invisible population that has wonderful healthcare coverage if they can access it. Once they sign up for OHP, which is a very easy process, you need help, you go to the hospital, or you're just with my team now, you need help. I just came through, I'm going to be living here. I don't have healthcare. OHP is a stench. It can be signed up in an hour. When the button is pushed to send to give the OHP, All Care Health is recognized and notified, and they assign a case manager, and they're on it, and you got a primary care provider, and they'll do soup to nuts. It's the best state-run Medicaid program in the country, period. However, it misses everybody living in the parks, everybody that's homeless, because you have to have identification, a phone, a car, be able to get appointments scheduled, be able to get tests scheduled, be able to get test results, be able to get there. They don't have the trust for the people that live in the parks, and the people in the parks don't trust the medical system. So my job for the last 2 years has been the bridge to say, hey, we have needs here and we have healthcare here. Can we get you together? That's what I do. I'm the connector more than anything else. I still do primary care. I still have a license. Thank God for Oregon Medical Board. You can retire from active practice and keep what's called an emeritus license, which means I can do anything I want under my old license except charge for my fees or my services. Wonderful. I don't get paid when I go overseas. This was fine. So I am the community service medical advisor for All Care Health Net. And when I represent them in the park, like I did this morning, I found people that had OHP, had chronic needs, I'll set you up with a doctor and I can do that. Or I'm the medical net connector. You have wounds, you have needs, but you're healthy. Would you like to be seen by one of our nurses 3 times a week at least, when no other service in town can do that? You want me to stop? You're very kind. I can't stop it, but that's, oh, it started over again. Oh, I get another 20 minutes. Promise no, I'm gonna tie this up. So the last 2 years, I've learned a lot. I've been on an educational journey all my life. I think I've said I love medicine, and one of the reasons is there's always something to learn. I proudly state that I was the oldest person to get a graduate degree at age 65 in East Africa, being trained in the treatment, diagnosis and treatment of all African tropical diseases in 2015. 3 months, 91 days to be approximate, of in the camps, in the lab, flew in the world's best professors everywhere from around the world and taught Bruce Murray how to treat African diseases, which made all the difference, as that's what I was doing for the next few years. So I went from not knowing what malaria was to being able to identify it under a microscope and know the exact up-to-date, as of today, treatment in Uganda. That's huge. And so I have that educational streak. My mother started that, and I've tried to continue it. But I started working here first with Road Retreat at their Ramsey shelter that they originally had, the Road Retreat shelter for the unhoused up on Ramsey, which later was taken over by UCAN last year, and now it closed down, unfortunately. But that gave me a view of what the barriers were to healthcare. Oh my, someone would come in, they've got obvious heart failure. They haven't been on medicines. Their legs are swollen to their hips. They can't breathe. Their heart's this big. And it took so much work to get him what he needed, because he was a former meth addict. He had stopped using up in Wolf Creek. He had come because he was so sick. He was hospitalized in the ICU for 2 months, got out, needed kidney doctors, heart doctors, pulmonary doctors, addiction specialists, all these things. And he had nothing. He's 56, not eligible for Medicare. OHP was all he had, and he could get an appointment to see a practitioner in 3 months. He would have been dead. But they were really good. I'm not knocking all care. I'm not knocking any of the practices. They're overwhelmed. And this is a difficult crowd to take care of. I know. So trust me. I do want to just, before I do get run off stage, just say, if you need to get asked about the problem with the homeless population in Grants Pass, why don't they just get a job? Why don't they just fix their drug addiction? Why don't they just get help for their mental illness? They're missing the big points. And the big points, please, and this is after not just a year of study or 2 years of study, but I have been reading on this continually, talking to the best people. And we have some of the best people in Josephine County for addiction treatment and for mental health. We just don't have the resources. There are 3 common threads for everyone I have met who is experiencing homelessness. What's 3? Only 3 that everyone has, because not everyone is mentally ill, not everyone is addicted. But what do they share all 3 of? Poverty. Poverty, number 1. Studies have shown you give people money, they buy themselves out of the parks. They don't want to be there. They're poor. And they don't even have to be poor. They just have to not have enough to rent an apartment. Okay, poverty, beautiful. Number 2, a lot of them do have trauma, but I'm talking about everyone that I see. Everyone that I see, those are all good. These are all good. Poverty, it's in the name. Affordable housing. They are without affordable housing, but they're called homeless. But there are, if there was affordable housing, most of them would move out. Not all, but that's why they're in the park, is they have nowhere else to go. And the third one, which only became intuitive and to me when I saw it over and over again, no one that I have seen, hundreds of people, is there for any other reason. Poverty, yes, not a house. They don't have a social safety net. If they had a brother in Tennessee, they'd be on his couch. If they had kids that still wanted to be associated with mom at 76, who's living in a tent from Weimar, they would be there for them. They're not there. These are people that have suffered loss. It can be loss of a spouse, a partner, a job, and they have nowhere else to go. Can you imagine? I mean, we all have had tough times. I have not had a tough time. I have not had a tough time. But if I did, I knew where I could go. And I've helped people in my family that have hit those crossroads. And we have been able to help them, fortunately. And probably all of you know people that you have helped that if it wasn't for you, they would be in the parks. 3 things: poverty, homelessness, lack of a social safety net. Then we can get down to talking about the individual problems that people have. But that's mainly what I wanted to say. So what have I learned in my 73 years, most of which been in medicine? I've been a doctor for 1976, so that's somewhere over 50 years. The Maslow pyramid is alive and well. Okay, that's the aspirational, where you start low, food, water, and you work your way up to being the best you can be. Well, I don't care whether it's Uganda, I don't care if it's the Haitian refugees I treated after a hurricane in the Bahamas, people who are displaced for whatever reason, and we can call our friends in the parks displaced. They don't feel safe. They are unsheltered. They are hungry, they're malnourished, they're deprived of basic access to clean water, hygiene, and healthcare. I just came from a park this morning, at least 75 people living there, 1 outhouse overflowing. Okay, that is inhumane. That would not pass muster at any refugee park camp I've worked at on 4 continents. Okay, housing is healthcare. Housing is health. That's not my mantra. It is the mantra of the group that I work with called MINT. And finally, health equity is still a dream in this country, like voting equality is still a dream in this country. Health equity, the ability of people we're not even talking about privilege anymore, are we? The only privilege is that the group that I work with feels it's a privilege to serve them. They're human beings, they're hungry, they're poor, they're malnourished, they don't have a safety net, and there's no place for them to live. Do they deserve to be stigmatized, marginalized? No, but nor did the people I worked with before. So that's why I feel like this art has brought me right back where I should be. My faults. I didn't want you leaving here feeling I was perfect. I know that was really in jeopardy there. I am known to be verbose. I am known to be a very poor listener. I interrupt a lot. I've been told a lot. I don't take criticism kindly because I'm sure there's nothing to be critical of. And this is the one when my wife read this morning, she says, yes. And Bruce, you don't know when to retire. Thank you. Thank you. Coming from you guys, that means a lot. Thank you. 20 seconds. You'll notice I didn't talk a lot about MINT. That's my 4-hour lecture. MINT is a volunteer group, primarily medical, 3 wonderful doctors, Dr. Brown, Dr. Meckling, myself, 3 wonderful nurses, Cassie Leach, Ruth Daly, and Connie Segarra, and 3 wonderful volunteers, including Jennifer Philippi over here, who helps feed the hungry in Illinois Valley. Wonderful people. And if you want me to come back at some point and just talk to you about the project that we're doing that is sanctioned by All Care, sanctioned by Public Health, we bring all the allied social services, addiction, mental health, DHS, food bank, public health into the parks with us so we can give the services so they can reach. So transportation is not an issue and phones are not an issue. We can sign them up there for whatever they need. That's a preview of coming attractions. Thank you. Goodbye.
I'd like to get these meetings over by 1 because I know people have things to do, but we still need to do happy bucks, but I wouldn't mind taking a few questions if Dr. Murray's willing to answer them. All right. How about some questions?
Come back anytime.
Yeah. It was a statement.
You can ask me tough questions too. Don, oh, here comes one. Thank you. I started working in medical ethics after I did an ethics workshop in high school and in medical school. I organized the written code of conduct for medical students at the University of Miami back in the 70s. When I came to Grants Pass, Kitty Wad said, you know, we don't have a bioethics committee at Southern Oregon Hospital. Do you know anything about that? I said, I don't, but we'll learn together. And we worked together for the next 20 years, setting up the bioethics committee at both Josephine and at Southern Oregon, which became the one at Asante. So ethics and how we treat one another and how we take good care of patients, particularly at the end of life, is another passion. I have a separate PowerPoint on that sometime. But yes, thank you for acknowledging that. I appreciate it because it was a big part of my life and I did use it in Uganda a lot. Yes. Okay, we are non-political. I know that sounds hard to believe, but particularly Cassie, Leah, and I are the three founders of Mint. We are not political, and we have to stay non-political in this environment. I'm sure Valerie doesn't understand that at all, but I'm just giving her that information. But vote on the mayor election. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we're going to launch into an hour now. Thank you. It's the mobile integrated navigation team. Team, big T, capital T, team. We work as a team. I'm the medical officer. Cassie is the CEO. Leah is the chief operations officer. That's the three of us. Mint. You all can call us at any time with any questions, any problems. Somebody sleeping in your backyard, let us know. Seriously, we have a team. So that is, and the navigation is where we bring in the allied wraparound services with us to the parks. We are applying for 501c3. Hope it'll be through soon. But right now, I'm getting wonderful support from Mid-Road Foundation, which funded our mobile van. I've got pictures later, not now. And they helped us with funding for the van. All Care is helping us fund supplies that we need. So the generosity of All Care Health, Mid-Road Foundation, Jed Keller, Doug Walker, Bev Walker, Patty Hansen, of course. I keep thinking, Jed Keller, she's not a Keller. Yeah, my wife is Dr. Brown, so she's not a Marie either. So sorry, Patty. Of course, Patty. Yes.
Do you need volunteers?
Thank you. I would love to get your name and have you write down on a piece of paper. Right now, we're in our growing pains. We saw 14 people this morning under the trees and in the bushes that needed help. At least 9 of them would have been sent to the emergency room under other circumstances. We treated them there, got them antibiotics, and one of our crack nurses will see them every other day until they're well. So we are going through supplies a lot. We will need things like that a lot. But right now, we just don't even have time to train up somebody. We've got 3 wonderful volunteers, including Jennifer, and she can tell you easily what she does, and we will need expanded services. So please send me an email, pbrucemurray@hotmail.com. P as in Philip, which is my real first name, but I know it is pbrucemurray@hotmail.com. You may reach me anytime, or you know where Steve lives. He knows where I live. Anybody else? Sorry. Thank you.
It's nothing. All right, Dawn, are we ready? Happy bikes. Don't forget the 50-50 raffle.
Yes, and we need the cards to pick the cards. All right, I can't help but say that I had like a long thing to say here, but if it were up to me, I would make today National Dr. Bruce Murray Day. And I think all of you would agree. But alas, the nation has decided to make it another beer day, Bela, but then also National Buy a Book Day. So this is the book that we're reading now. And I invite anyone who wants to, it's Gateway Rotary Reads. We vote on books that we want to read, and this one is about hope, which I think, if you think about Dr. Murray, he's all about hope and action. So please get this book and read. You got 2 whole months to do it. All right, so let's do the cards and then we'll do Happy Bucks. There is perch for this job. It's the 7 of clubs. Wonderful. So Tommy, because it's you, you get all of the money. Okay. Just joking. All right, how about Happy Bucks? All right. Go Lutz. I think so. Yeah, I'll carry it around if you want.
I've got 5 happy bucks for Bruce being here. As he said, we've known each other for a long time. I spent 20 years on the ethics committee with him, and I have to credit Bruce with my knowledge of medical terminology, because when we first started, there were some very long terms happening. Bruce would look over at me and see the puzzled look on my face and say, Lutz, it just means they bleed a lot. So thank you, Bruce, for all of your help.
Okay, I've got 5 happy bucks because I got to swim with whale sharks.
That's scary. All right, Kelly.
I have 5 happy bucks because, to John, because both my daughters are flying in tomorrow and Saturday for my birthday.
And I've got 5 happy bucks here because I tested my Pinot Grigio grapes this morning and they are ready to pick. And the red grapes will not be ready for another week or 2. Some of you have come to the picking party. We work for maybe half hour, 45 minutes, and then I feed you and you drink wine. If you are interested in doing that, let me know because we'll schedule an event.
Thank you for a great presentation, Dr. Murray. And Dave and I have 5 bucks here. Dave and I just returned from a great trip. We went to Morocco, Portugal, Italy, France, and Spain. It was very nice, but I'm very grateful for the trip. I'm grateful that the Smith River fire is getting under control and that I can possibly go visit my daughter who lives in Crescent City. And then one other thing, speaking of medical and exchange students, when I was in Naples, I got to visit a past exchange student that I had from Milan, Italy, and he is now an emergency room doctor. So it was wonderful to get to visit with him.
Happy Bucks once again for Bruce. What a wonderful presentation. And I have the honor of my daughter was very close friends with his son, who is a wonderful person. And my daughter's in town with her puppy dog this week. So it's been wonderful to see her. So, you know. Okay, I've got 10 sad happy bucks. It's about goodbye to Holly. No crying. But Holly, it's kind of like a relay race. She's brought in her friend Renee, who's going to come and take her place and become a Rotarian. So
I will throw my 5 bucks in also for Dr. Murray. My big chuckle, hopefully Sue, I won't embarrass you. She leaned over and said, he's a tough act to follow. This is going to be awful. So from now on, I'm going to send a clip of your presentation on, and then you'll make connections with other people too, just like Judy Marie. Thanks again, Dr. Murray. You are wonderful.
Is that it? El Presidente, the mic is yours.
Well, the end of another great program, and I have a quotation from Pearl S. Buck. And it turns out to be serendipitous following the presentation that we just had from Dr. Murray. And the quotation is, because I believe he embodies this, to find joy in the world is to discover the fountain of youth. Pearl S. Buck. Thank you.